What's up guys, it's Amir and today we are looking at our boy JB's hair transplant analysis. Now we don't know for sure if he got a hair transplant, these are speculations, but there's a good amount of signs that we've seen over the years of our boy JB going bald, and I want to show you some photos of his hair loss journey and some of the treatments that he could have possibly done to reverse it and most importantly maintain what he has now. Before we start, a quick word from our sponsor Vera Clinic. Vera Clinic is where I got my hair transplant done from. If you're looking for a quality trusted professionals who can get you long-lasting and natural looking results for a fraction of a price, look no further than Vera Clinic. They got me these amazing results for my own hair transplant, and I would highly recommend them to anybody looking to get their own transplant done, especially overseas. If you want to check out my series of my hair transplant, that where I filmed the whole surgery and everything, as well as my month-by-month recovery, I'll leave a link to that whole playlist in the description below, as well as the contact information for Vera Clinic so you can contact them for your own hair transplant needs. That being said, let's jump right into the video. Let's take a look at the early years of Justin. This is the JB I remember seeing this photo when he was 15, and I was so jealous of his hair. It looked so nice, so luscious, so thick. Just looking at the texture of his hair, it had a lot of volume, so I would have never suspected that he's gonna go bald. But shortly 3 years after, this is him at 18 years old. This is in between years 2012 through 14. He has no signs of any sort of hair loss, but now looking at it in hindsight, on his temples, you can see that slight bald spot on his head, but at this point I wouldn't even suspect hair loss. I actually have a friend who I've known ever since my childhood. He always had like a small bald spot ever since he was a kid, but all these years later had a full head of hair, just had that tiny bald spot. But this is something I would never suspect. In 2015 is where we see Justin playing around with different hairstyles. This is also where he dyed his hair blonde, but again, his hairline is still perfectly intact. One thing to consider is that by repeatedly bleaching your hair with all these crazy different chemicals and treatments, it can cause permanent hair damage, and especially if you are prone to hair loss, doing such treatments, even like perms these kids are doing nowadays, it's very harmful for your hair and can cause permanent hair damage. So in 2018 is here we actually see the first initial signs of hair loss. He's about 24 years old at this time, and his temples have recessed quite a bit. He is in the public eye, so it's interesting the way that he styled his hair, where the recession is not quite as noticeable. Obviously on the photo on the left where we see his hair getting pulled back, those temples is starting to make like a V shape. That's kind of like how my hair was, but my temples were a lot more thin. But in the photo on the right, the way his hair is propped to the right side, covering his temples, as well as some of the baby hairs that are making a little bit more volume on the left. At this point, his stylists who are doing his hair have noticed the fact and have tried to magically blend his baby hairs with his temples so the recession does not look as noticeable. So in 2021, we see a very prominent sign of hair loss on those temples that we were suspecting are gonna go bald. This is when the average man starts to experience hair loss, and the dreadlocks definitely make the hair appear a lot worse than it is. Also, if you're into doing like these tight hairstyles that pull your hair back quite a bit, that can cause something called traction alopecia. It is where if you put too much stress or too much strain on the hairline especially, it can cause further hair loss. So just doing a tight braided hairstyle or dreadlocks which are gonna pull your hair back is gonna make it even worse, causing even further damage. So if you have that, one thing to keep in mind, stay away from these tight hairstyles, but obviously in this case for Justin it's a little too late. The photo on the left you see where he has the hair all grown out and kind of put to the side, that I would say is the best hairstyle for longevity because it's not going to cause any future hair loss, and it's also covering up the temples. It's a win-win for both. But the most pivotal moment for his hair transplant, I would say, is between 2022 and 23. This is where we see Justin exclusively wearing hats on his social media and on TV or wherever we see him. I would suspect that this is where he got a hair transplant, and he's probably going through his shedding phase where the hair loss is appearing a lot worse. And I can almost 90% confirm this because this photo of him in 22, we see his recessed temples on obviously his pink dyed hair. If we zoom in a little bit closer on that photo, you can see those tiny hairs that are poking out from his temples, indicating that he may have gotten his transplant, and that looks like a freshly shedded off area from his transplanted grafts. I know those little hairs. I think that happens towards month number 3 and 4. I'll put a picture of my temples up over here as well, and you can see it looks very similar, like those tiny hairs poking out. These are recent photos of him of May and July 23. We can see his hair loss has definitely recovered and came a long way. We can see his hair loss, especially in the photo with his hair a lot shorter. The temples don't look as bad. And the photo of him on the right side next to the Migos, he's going back to that same look he had in early 21 where it's a lot gentle on the hair, it's covering up his temples, and that right there is a win-win situation for his current hair routine, as well as to ensure that he's not getting any further hair loss. Now, Justin has advocated for finasteride for his other celebrity friends who are balding on other podcasts and whatnot, so it's safe to say he's probably taking it himself as a prevention protocol, but I think overall genetically his hair is fairly thick, so even if he were to get a bigger procedure down the line, if he ends up his hair loss gets worse, I don't think he's gonna have a problem holding onto his hair for the next like 25-30 years, knowing the situation of his hair. But if he stays on finasteride, he's gonna be completely fine. Regardless, I think this was a very interesting analysis to see how celebrities go about in terms of hiding their hair loss and, you know, making it seem like they never got a procedure done. And a lot of people do it at a very slow pace, so it doesn't look like a drastic 0 to 100 difference. And that's what you call a good hair transplant. And if you can disguise it while you're a celebrity, I think that's a W for them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.